algorithmically driven content just kind of drives everybody to anger all the time. Because
it definitely does. So this is the main thing I wanted to bring up from the video, is the idea that anger spreads on social media or on any platform, like even in word of mouth and stuff. People who are angry are more likely to share that anger, either in frustration or for like validation, like, hey, I saw this today, wasn't it awful? And someone goes, oh, that was awful. So it's that sort of validation aspect of it. So it's very well documented that anger does spread. Of all the emotions, anger is the most viral. And especially on these big platforms, you have a lot of the algorithms just focus on engagement. They don't focus on positive or negative. They just focus on, oh, you've commented on this video, or you interact with this post. You spent more time looking at this post. You spent maybe an average of 2 seconds on this one post, but then you looked at this post for about a minute. So the algorithm does not differentiate between positive interactions and negative interactions. So I think what he's saying here is very true, and it's particularly on the bigger platforms, things like Twitter, things like TikTok and YouTube. On these platforms that are already big, the effect of these viral videos, the rage bait videos and that, becomes a lot bigger. Like, it just becomes a compounding factor where these videos get more attention, so they get shared more, which means they get more attention. And so a lot of these negative aspects, these anger videos and such, either intentionally or unintentionally do get shared, and that encourages people to share more of that content, because they go, oh, this video of me this video of me yelling at a video game, saying how bad it is and that sort of thing, or a movie, might get more attention than a video where let's go, well, actually, I really loved this aspect of the movie. This is the framing of this shot here or something. The violence and the anger is becoming a lot more. It's not becoming more intense. It's just becoming more normalized, I think. There's one thing Jack doesn't really talk about in the video, I think, is the idea that people are very, what's the word I'm looking for? They're very set in their own view. And the idea of disagreeing with somebody, if you take the concept of somebody who's a vegan, somebody who says, you cannot eat meat because I think you shouldn't eat meat, therefore you shouldn't eat meat either. It might seem like a silly thing, and you see the videos of like the people getting angry at people eating meat at KFC or something, and you think, oh, that's silly. But then you see someone do the exact same thing with, with Harry Potter or something, where it's like, oh, this book is atrocious. The writer, it doesn't matter whether the views of the writer are good or not, but people will look at that and go, you're supporting this person's views. I personally read Harry Potter. It was one of the few books I read, and it really meant a lot to me, because it was one of those things where it could capture my imagination, that world, completely irrespective of the author. That world meant a lot to me as a kid growing up. And if I had shared that in some spaces online, people would immediately have been like, oh, well, you're still a bad person because you enjoyed those books. And it's like, well, no, the books have nothing to do with that person's views, but it becomes so polarizing that people will just become more angry, more virulent. I don't know. That's just one thing. I just feel like it's not that people are getting angry and sharing it more. It's just that people are getting more angry in general. They're becoming more polarizing. They're becoming more, you're either with me or against me. And I think that's a big problem, honestly. You can get caught in these negative loops, like I say. Even just like the algorithm will share posts that people like. But also, if you're engaging with more and more of these posts, it will show you more and more of these posts. So I think it's absolutely true that he is getting caught in these, whether it's from the creators he follows or whether it's just because of the platforms he's on. Being stuck in these negative spirals is absolutely a problem. I don't think it's a problem of there is no positive news. I think there is positive news. I just feel like it comes and goes so quickly, and people are less, I don't know, there's less avenues to share it that don't get just completely drowned out. Again, it's like, it takes the Mr. Beast controversy. There's been many controversies, of course, but the idea that, he cured or gave sight to people who were vision impaired, people who were partially or like almost fully blind, he gives them to 1,000 people, and that's 1,000 people's life who's been changed for the better. More than 1,000, if you think of the families involved, the dads who can see the children who can see the parents, it's not just changing that one person, it's changing everyone around and attached to that person. Changing thousands of lives but it's seen as like, oh, well, you're just making this for content, or the wells in Africa, that sort of thing, where people can take anything, no matter how positive or however it looks, and you can find a negative. And people will look for that negative thing because they want to, effectively, they want to have a popular opinion. They want to be able to say that, hey, saying Mr. Beast did a good thing here, irrespective of who Mr. Beast is as a person, this action of Mr. Beast is a good thing. That's a lot. That doesn't spread. That's not a viral take, as it were. And virality is seen as almost a milestone in social media nowadays, where it's like, if you're not going viral, if you're not following, if you don't have 10,000 followers or something, or you don't have 1,000 friends on Facebook, then something wrong with you. And that's been around for a long time. The idea of like Facebook friends, of Twitter followers, it's become almost a game in and of itself. I think that's a big problem. People go into these conversations, or they go into discussions not wanting to change. They want to change the other person, but they have no intention of changing their own view, of learning, of growing. I think that's something that's been lost over time, is that idea of you can learn something from anybody, whether it's somebody who shares your opinions or whether it's somebody who disagrees with you. You can learn something, whether it's a new fact or whether it's a new part of your opinion. Well, if you believe eating meat is wrong, why do you think that? And let's have a discussion about that. The idea of clean energy, the idea that, oh, well, fossil fuels are destroying the planet. We live in a society that cannot function without fossil fuels currently. So if we were just to, tomorrow we make fossil fuels illegal, well, the flip side of that is we lose a lot of electricity. We lose a lot of things like computers and stuff that aren't necessary for work, for government infrastructure. They go. You cannot. You just have recreational electricity anymore. You can't create new green energy sources because they take a lot of upfront investment to make. So you can learn something even if you believe you have the right point of view. There's always something to learn, always something to gauge, maybe something you haven't considered. But I feel like a lot of internet discourse is about trying to change someone else's view, of winning some sort of argument, winning some sort of fight, that it just kind of gets lost in the discussion, in honest discussion. It just doesn't become a good faith discussion at that point. Dehumanizing people by just making them statistics, by making them not an individual person, but rather part of a collective group that they do not choose to be part of. Good point is the idea of mental health, that being so important. It's something that has become a bit of a buzzword over time. But in the same way that physical health is important, mental health is important. It's just that simple. If what works for one person might not work for another person, whether it's medication, whether it's going to therapy, it might work for somebody, it won't work for another person. But being aware of your own mental health, of your own mental state, for example, my personal is I have anxiety. I have quite deep social anxiety. I don't take any medication for it. I don't go to therapy for it. I probably should do that, but I don't particularly have the financing for that or the drive, honestly. I actually have anxiety of going to a therapist because it's like, oh, that person, they say they won't be judging me, but I'll be judging myself through them. I'll be using their thoughts and opinions to judge myself. And I know that from experience. I will judge myself even when the other person isn't trying to judge me. Or I will just answer in ways that, like, oh, this is the expected way to answer, so I'll answer in this sense. But the idea of being aware of your own mental health, like I'm aware of my anxiety, and it doesn't control my life, but it is still a part of who I am. And I'm aware that I would not be the same person without this anxiety. I would be a completely different person. So I personally don't want to remove it. I'm anxious to remove my anxiety. Being able to be aware of your own limitations of mental health. If you know that something is a trigger for you, I know trigger is a loaded word, but if something is going to upset you, making sure you're aware of that. So if it comes up, you can have maybe an exit plan or something, or you can have a support network in place to be able to deal with that concept. For me, the internet it's been a mixed bag where I have been extremely isolated in my life. I have had very few close friends. I have, maybe the internet has caused me to not actually want to go out and meet people. But without the internet, I would almost be a hermit. I would never have managed to gain the social skills I have, the social confidence, which isn't a lot, but I never would have even got that far without the internet, without, VTubing, without meeting people, playing on World of Warcraft. I still really struggle talking in voice chat with people who I've raided with for like 2 or 3 years, just because I'm very socially anxious about that sort of thing. But for me, the internet has given me an opportunity to slowly, and it has been slow, improve my skills to actually know people and get to know people a bit closer. But my friends on the internet are still quite a small handful, but they are more than the friends I have in real life. And like I say, that is partly because I am extremely introverted. I'm a very social anxious person. Do struggle with that. I'm going in a circle there. But it's not always a bad thing. Like I say, the internet is a good space, I think. That's my take, is the internet is a good space. It's not perfect for everybody, but it is good for me.